Okay, today's topic is peptic ulcer. Peptic ulcer. Um, the definition of peptic ulcer is here the acid peptic digestion of elementary mucosa resulting in an ulcer is called as the peptic ulcer disease. So here what happens, the elementary mucosa is digested. There's a digestion of the elementary mucosa membrane causes the peptic ulcer. So this is called as the peptic ulcer disease. So it is due to the corrosive effects of acid, corrosive effects of acid and proteolytic effect of pepsin. So the pepsin having the proteolytic effect. That's why the digestion of the mucosa leads to peptic ulcer. And here gastritis. Gastritis is the precursor of or precursor to peptic ulcer disease, and it is clinically difficult to differentiate these two. So the symptoms of gastritis and peptic ulcer disease are same. We have to differentiate how. So if it is present, if the ulcer present present in the stomach, it is called gastric ulcer. If the ulcer is present in stomach, it is called gastric ulcer. If it is present in the duodenum, it is called as the duodenal ulcer. If it is present in the esophagus, it is called as the esophageal ulcer. If it is present in the Meckel's diverticulum, called Meckel's diverticulum ulcer, and anastomotic ulcer after GJ. GJ means gastrojejunostomy. After surgery of gastrojejunostomy, there is we are suturing the stomach with the jejunum at the gastro junction. So there gastro where the sutures are present, there formation of a ulcer. It is called as the anastomotic ulcer after GJ means gastrojejunostomy. So first one is, if it is in the stomach, it is called gastric ulcer. If it is present in the duodenum, duodenal ulcer. It is if it is present in the esophagus, it is called as the esophageal ulcer. If it is present in the Meckel's diverticulum, it is called as the Meckel's diverticulum ulcer. If it is present at the after surgery of GJ, so gastrojejunostomy at the junction where the we are the anastomosing part of gastrojejunostomy, there may be a formation of a ulcer that is called as the ulcer, anastomotic ulcer. And how the now let us discuss about the gastric mucosa, gastric mucosa and their secretions. So here gastroduodenal mucosal integrity is determined by the protective and damaging factors. So here protective and damaging factors are present in the, and there is the integrity between the gastroduodenal mucosa. So this mucosal integrity is determined by the protective or defensive and damaging means aggressive factors. So the secretion, the integrity depends upon the defensive mechanism and aggressive factors. And when the aggressive factors increase or the defensive factors decrease, mucosal damage will result. So when the aggressive, if the secretion is increases and means protective if the decrease of protection causes the damaging, increasing the damage. Here what happens? Aggressive factors increase or the defensive factors. So aggressive factors increase or the defensive factors decrease. Here you can see the mucosal damage leading to erosion and ulceration. If the aggressive factors, so increase of aggressive factors causes the erosions and ulceration. So whenever aggressiveness is present, definitely there is the defensive factors are decreased. So here imbalance. Here you can see the imbalance. If these are in a balance, the gastric functions are normal. If imbalance present, so generally are imbalance primarily between aggressive factors and defensive factors. Imbalance primarily between the aggressive factors and defensive factors. If the aggressive factors if the aggressive factors decreases, example acid peptin and bile, there is increase of defective factors, example mucus and bicarbonate. So if the aggressive factors are decreases, like what are this acid, pepsin and bile. If the defensive factors increases, there is secretion of mucus and bicarbonate HCO3. HCO3. Okay. Now let us discuss about the phases of gastric secretion. Phases of gastric secretion. Listen carefully. First one is cephalic. Cephalic means stimulation. What is the stimulation? What is the stimuli? Sight, smell, taste, or thought of food. So in cephalic phase or stimulate phase, there is a need of a stimuli. So stimuli means sight of food, smell of food, taste or thought of food. Here what happens? Vagus receives this sight and smell and taste of food through M3 receptors and histamine through H2 receptors and secretion of gastrin. This is the pathway: vagus, histamine, and gastrin. So this is the cephalic phase. So there should be some stimulation, sight or smell or taste or thought of food. And another stage is gastric. So also stimulate phase. Gastric also stimulate phase. Here the food in the stomach after eating. After eating, what happens? The food in the stomach. So while entering into the food or while food in the stomach, there is first stretch of stretch of gastric surface or increase the gastric surface. It is a local reflex. It is a local reflex by M3 receptors. And next what happens? There is chemical substances in food. So the gastrin secreted in the stomach and this chemical substance mixed with the food. So this is the chemical substances in the food. And next secretion and increase pH. Increase pH. So this increase of pH by inhibition of somatostatin, somatostatin release. So this somatostatin release causes the inhibition of inhibition of somatostatin. There is increase of pH due to inhibition of somatostatin. There is increase of pH. Next one is intestinal. Intestinal. So intestinal, there is inhibit. So there is no need of any secretion of secretions in the stomach. So when the food become chyme in the stomach and it enters into the duodenum. Chyme in the duodenum. So when chyme in the duodenum, so when this chyme enters into the duodenum, there is no need of any secretions in the stomach. Then gastric secretions are mainly pepsinogen, pepsinogen, and these are the chief cells secreted by chief cells, and HCl and intrinsic factor secreted by the parietal cells, and gastrin secreted by the G cells, mucus or bicarbonate. So these are the secreted by mucus secreting cells. So the gastric secretions are mainly pepsinogen, hydrochloric acid and intestine factor, gastrin, mucus and bicarbonate. So what is the cause for the imbalance? So aggressive factors and other factors are recessive factors are aggressive factors and defensive factors. So in between these imbalance due to Helicobacter pylori, Helicobacter pylori, and NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, ethanol, tobacco, and severe physio- severe physiologic stress, severe physiologic stress like burns, CNS trauma, surgery, and severe medical illness. And another cause is due to steroids. So the imbalance between aggressive factors and defensive factors. There is the defensive factors and imbalance due to Helicobacter pylori and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, ethanol, tobacco, and severe physiologic stress like burns, trauma of central nervous system, some surgeries, severe medical illness. So these are the comes under severe physiologic stress. Then steroids. Steroids also causes the imbalance. And now let us discuss about the etiology. Etiology means causative factors. The other uncommon causes like gastrinoma, other uncommon causes. Common causes are those, and other uncommon causes include gastrinoma. So here tumor from the gastrin secretion parts. So this is called as the gastrin secreting tumor. And next one is stress ulceration. Stress ulceration, trauma, burns, and critical illness. And viral infections viral infections, and vascular insufficiency. And mainly the two most common causes of peptic ulcer disease are, first one is Helicobacter pylori infection. It is about 70 to 80%. So first cause is Helicobacter pylori infection. Next one is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs. So here two most common causes of peptic ulcer disease is Helicobacter pylori infection and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And Helicobacter pylori as a cause of PUD. Now let us discuss about Helicobacter, how the Helicobacterium causes for the peptic ulcer disease. And the majority of peptic ulcer majority of peptic ulcer patients are Helicobacter pylori infected persons. And pathogenesis of Helicobacter pylori infection. Helicobacter pylori infection. Helicobacter, Helicobacter pylori is a gram-negative spiral and having multiple flagella at one end. So at one end it is having multiple flagella. It is a gram-negative and spiral, and it is transmitted from person to person by oro-oral or fecal-oral spread. So the transmission of this Helicobacter pylori oral to oral or fecal-oral spread, and rhesus monkey is the only natural reservoir. So this rhesus monkey having the natural reservoir for the Helicobacter pylori. Now, Helicobacter pylori causes 95% duodenal ulcers, 70% gastric ulcers, 70 to 90% gastritis, and gastric cancer. So it is the carcinogen. Helicobacter pylori is the carcinogen. So carcinogen means which causes carcinoma or malignancy. It is called as the carcinogen. And gastric melanoma. Here what happens? Gastric melanoma. So gastric melanoma means mucosa associated lymphoid tissue lymphoma. Gastric melanoma means mucosa associated lymphoid tissue lymphoma. And continuation of pathogenesis of Helicobacter pylori infection. Here, any acidity is buffered by the organisms. Production of the enzyme urease. So, here acidity buffered. Any acidity is buffered by the organisms. Production of enzyme urease, which catalyzes the production of ammonia. So, this urease catalyzes the production of ammonia from urea and raises the pH. So due to the increase of urease, in the stomach the pH increases. So here pH increases means there is acid nature increases in the stomach, and this bacterium stimulates chronic gastritis. So this bacterium means this Helicobacter pylori stimulates the chronic gastritis by provoking a local inflammatory response. So whenever bacteria enters or if the acidity increases, there is the defense mechanism and causes the inflammatory response. And so this is due to the Helicobacter pylori. And non-steroid, next cause is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So generally these are using for the body pains, joint pains, and if you take this non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, immediately there is the relief. So that's why the people using these NSAIDs or non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, it produces symptomatic gastrointestinal ulceration. Symptomatic gastrointestinal ulceration. It is about 2 to 4% of patients. So treated with nauseous for 1 year. If they take this non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for 1 year, they may develop this gastrointestinal ulceration. Okay, and the effect of aspirin. So the aspirin is the anticoagulant. So generally these aspirin given to the heart patients to prevent clots or embolism or clots and embolism. And so both aspirin and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on the gastric mucosa ranges from mucosal hemorrhages. So immediate effect is, if it is affected first mucosal hemorrhages, then erosions, mucosal hemorrhages to erosion. After hemorrhage, what happens? The erosion of mucous membrane. So here, due to erosion, there is a discontinuity of the mucous membrane and leads to ulcer. And these non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs inhibits the production of prostaglandins. Prostaglandins. So it is the precursor from membrane fatty acids resulting. So due to the inhibition of production of prostaglandins, it is the precursor from the membrane fatty acids resulting in, first one is decrease mucus, decrease mucus and bicarbonate production. Here what happens? Decrease mucus and bicarbonate production. This bicarbonate maintains the normal pH of the juices, gastric juices, and mucus protects the stomach. So this mucus layer is protects the stomach layer. Here what happens due to the excessive usage of the inhibitions of the prostaglandins. So this prostaglandins helps in the maintain all these normal conditions. Here what happens? The production of the prostaglandins inhibitions causes decrease of mucus and bicarbonate production, and also decreases the mucosal blood flow, decreases the blood flow and reduces the cell renewal, So here what happens? These drugs generate oxygen free radicals, oxygen free radicals, and production of lipooxygenase pathway that may contribute to ulceration. So these drugs NSAIDs means non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs causes generate oxygen free radicals and production of lipooxygenase pathway that may contribute to ulceration. And Here, due to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and gastric acid probably aggravates due to nauseas, increase of gastric acid probably aggravates. Gastric acid maybe aggravates means increases and induce mucosal injury and induce this gastric acid induce mucosal injury by again by converting the superficial injury to deeper mucosal necrosis. This gastric acid, if the increase of gastric acid due to non-steroidal anti-inflammatory diseases, it causes mucosal injury by converting superficial injury to deeper mucosal necrosis and interfering with hemostasis. So where the injury is present, generally there is hemostasis and platelet aggregation. So where the injury, the generally the platelets reach there and produce clot to prevent bleeding. So here that's why after injury, it is interfering with hemostasis. So there is decreased hemostasis. So there may be reach of blood or due to reach of blood due to and due to injury and platelet aggregation. Where the injury present, definitely there is the platelet or aggregation means increase of the platelet count at the injured place and impairing ulcer healing, impairing ulcer healing. Ulcers of non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs are approximately 3 times greater relative risk serious adverse gastrointestinal events than non-users. So those who are using those who are using these drugs, they are 3 times greater risk, 3 times greater risk than non-users of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And next one is physiological stress ulcers. Physiological stress ulcers. Gastric mucosa of by gastric mucosa of body of stomach undergoes a period of transient ischemia. Transient ischemia in association with. So transient ischemia, there is decreased blood supply due to the mucosa of the body of the stomach is due to or associated with hypotension, hypotension, severe injury, extensive burns, and complicated surgery. So these are the physiological stress ulcers. So hypotension, severe injury, extensive burns, and complicated surgery. And this ischemia due to decreased capillary blood flow. So ischemia due to the decreased capillary blood flow or shunting of blood away from gastrointestinal tract so that blood flow bypasses gastric mucosa. So here what happens? Ischemia. Ischemia due to decreased capillary blood flow or shunting of blood away from gastrointestinal tract so that blood flows bypasses gastric mucosa. Here there is imbalance between destructive properties of HCl acid, HCl acid and pepsin and protective factors of stomach's mucosal barrier. So here imbalance between destructive properties and protective factors of stomach's mucosal barrier. And again, types acute and chronic. Acute, acute peptic ulcer disease. Acute peptic ulcer disease. These are duodenal ulcers or gastric ulcers. So, peptic ulcers, two types, acute and chronic. Acute peptic ulcer, duodenal or gastric ulcers. Acute peptic ulcers, again, two types, duodenal or gastric ulcers. They are usually multiple erosions due to disruption of the mucosal barrier. There are multiple erosions due to disruption of the mucosal barrier. Causes stress, drugs like analgesics, steroids, and surgeries. Here, sudden onset of acute pain and tenderness in epigastric region. Sudden onset of acute pain and tenderness in the epigastric region. Vomiting, vomiting with or without hematomesis. So blood may be present in the vomitus, and often acute peptic ulcers can lead to perforation. Acute peptic ulcers can lead to perforations. Acute ulcers after cerebral trauma or um, acute ulcers after cerebral trauma is called as Cushing's ulcer. Okay, here acute ulcers after cerebral trauma are called as Cushing's ulcer. Treatment, here treatment, we have to give antacids. Antacids, generally in the allopathic they are giving intravenous ranitidine 8 hourly, and IV fluids or IV pantoprazole or rabiprazole and omeprazole, and blood transfusion if there is bleeding. Most of the time surgery is not required for acute ulcers, and also you have to treat with our homeopathic medicines also. Tomorrow I will explain that ulcers.